We all know that dogs are one of the most popular pets in the world, and they like to show their love and loyalty. They would always make sure that you're their first priority and will do anything for you. Some people might not think that way, but dogs can make your life brighter too. They get dogs as puppies, but then the puppies grow up and are no longer the same cuddly pets they were when they were babies. They are still insanely sweet and caring creatures, but they're just not the same way. Certain people do not believe dogs have hearts. They think they can be cruel to them, and that is the most heartbreaking thing you could ever hear. The ones who abuse dogs are damaging them forever, and it takes a long time for them to recover. There are so many inspirational stories of rescued dogs, isn't there? The people who save them are kind-hearted citizens or workers at a local animal shelter. One can only hope that these animal helpers are able to save as many animals as they can. They witness heartbreaking scenes, and sometimes they don't succeed in rescuing all the animals every time. Even if they're able to help the animals, they're often overrun with the amount requests and struggle to find homes for them, whether they're temporary or permanent. Being an animal rescuer is to be an angel, and this is a story of some who, once again, went above and beyond. In Turkey, there's a rescue called Heart of Rescue. They are a loving organization, and they spend their days responding to sometimes the worst calls. They're known throughout the country as the rescue that takes on the worst cases. When Pascal was found, Heart of Rescue was called because they were at the top of everyone's list. However, even they couldn't believe what they saw. Pascal was a fairly young dog. He wasn't a puppy, but he still had lots of life left in him, and he still would have been a joy to any family. Unfortunately, it seemed that he wasn't a joy to his last family. For whatever reason, his last family had left him, and he had the uncountable adventure of running into a group of children in the street. That children were not the kindest people, and they were not delighted to find the dog and play with it. Instead, they saw it as an opportunity to have some of the cruelest fun. Pascal approached them trustingly. Up until his family abandoned him, he had a reasonably good life, it is thought. So, he did not think that the children would do anything cruel to him. They took advantage of that trusting nature and somehow got hold of some glue. They lured Pascal with some treats, and then they poured glue on him. The poor dog did not know what to do. He had never had glue poured on him before. So, he did not know what the sensation was. He was still trusting of the children, but it would obviously not be for much longer. The glue hardened and poor Pascal could no longer move. He froze in place, covered in glue and unable to even drag himself for help somewhere. The poor dog stayed frozen in place and began to whine because he had been on the street for a little while. He looked a little mangy, and people were afraid to approach him because of the way he looked. He wasn't being unfriendly, but he certainly wasn't the type of dog that children seemed to want to run up to and pet. The rescue organization could hardly believe their ears when they got the call. They had never had such a situation before, and they quickly rushed out. At first, when they went to the location that he was reported to be in, they could not find him. They wondered if they were being pranked. After all, it was a strange call, and the caller that alerted them had sounded so young. They wondered if it was all part of an elaborate prank. Then, they heard the growl from the side of the road. They looked under every available structure until they found him hiding in the bushes beside the original spot they had looked. Pascal was growling only because he was afraid. When he saw the rescuers, his shoulders seemed to droop as much as they could while covered in glue. They did not know how he managed to make it into the bushes when he was practically frozen with glue. It took rescuers a few moments to figure out how they were going to get him out. With every passing moment, he seemed to droop more. Normally, they would lure a dog out and then put him in a cage. However, luring him out was not possible in this case. Eventually, they decided that the best course of action was to carry him gently to their car and then take him to the rescue headquarters. Despite the Pascal seemed to understand that they were there to help him, and he let them carry him without too much of a fight. When they got him out of the bushes and into the car, they could truly see what a mess he was.
Also, if you've not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these animal stories every day. Now, back to the story.
He was shaking, and his fur was so matted that it was likely painful to him. It seemed a miracle that he could even see it all. The ride to the rescue was not long, and Pascal laid down as best as he could in the back seat. The rescuers noticed that he did not even lift his head and look around like most dogs would. His spirit seemed totally defeated, and they did not blame him. He had been through a horrible time. Once back at the rescue, they called the veterinarian to assess if he needed more than some tender loving care. The vet did say that it seemed like he had been on the street for quite a while, but other than some food, water, and a good haircut, it seemed Pascal would physically be alright. It was more than his physicality that the rescue was worried about. Dogs who have been abused sometimes never return to their former selves. They distrusted humans forever, which meant that it would be nearly impossible for them to find their forever homes. Although this rescue wasn't considered a kill shelter, they did not currently have a lot of room, and that meant they were going to struggle if Pascal took up one of their cages long terms. Despite that, one look in his eyes said that they had to try. He looked so sad and broken, and they knew that they had to help him. They began by giving him food and water. Although he could hardly move, he left at it gratefully, looking up with them every once in a while with large eyes. Once Pascal had food and water, they set to work, trying to restore him to his former glory. They began by shampooing his fur. The glue, of course, did not come off, but the dirt and grime that he had collected on the streets did come off. It wasn't long before it was time to trim the glue off his fur. The team wasn't entirely sure of the best way to do it because they had never done it before. Pascal, however, seemed to calm with every passing moment, and soon the glue dropped off the fur along with all of his knots and mats. He began to lick the hands of those who were helping him. He seemed to understand exactly what was being done for him, and he was incredibly grateful. His eyes turned from sad to sparkling as he was granted freedom from his prison of glue. One of the workers there, Rima, described Pascal as one of the kindest dogs she had ever met. She said that despite the painful process of shearing him down to his skin, she knew that if someone would just give him a chance, they would find that he was an incredibly kind dog who would make a wonderful pet. He never barked or showed any sort of fierceness, no matter who was in the room. Pascal seemed quite ready for his second chance to be a loving pet. The trouble, though, was finding a family to give them a chance. Generally, when a dog is adopted, they're adopted with all their so-called baggage attached. Pascal came with a hefty vet bill, which the rescue was trying to fundraise for. In addition, Pascal wasn't quite a puppy anymore. Most families wanted to adopt puppies, and they wanted to bring them around kids. Pascal would not do well with kids after his experience with glue. This story even made the news, but sadly, they never found the culprits. Hopefully, the perpetrators saw what they did to this poor creature and are remorseful. The images of Pascal shaved the skin raw and red are almost too much to bear. Rima hoped that Pascal would have a chance at a forever family. She began to look for a family for him right away and even start a fundraiser specifically for his medical costs. The rescue, after all, worked on donations, and sometimes during situations like this, they often created fundraisers specifically for the animals that had put them deep in debt. Currently, Pascal lives at the rescue's headquarters, although he hasn't been adopted yet. There have been people who have expressed their interest due to their increased spotlight on him. They have shared his story on social media and on the website, and people have felt pity, sympathy, and love for the poor dog who had to be shaved down to the skin. Although Pascal is not in his forever home, he is certainly happy to be among such loving people at the rescue headquarters. He has become their mascot and greets everyone who comes into the building, human and animal, with a wagging tail and a friendly attitude. He is willing to accept any petting or hugs, and he does not seem afraid of humans like everyone was certain he would be. Pascal has a heart of gold and has forgiven the species who abandoned and abused him. Pascal is a shining example of the unconditional love that an animal can provide. It would be great if he was adopted soon so that he can live his days guilt-free. Have you come across a heartwarming story about an animal that needed help or a person with a big heart? If you have, then let's share it with us. I hope you like this story. Please give us thumbs up and consider to share with your friends and family. Thank you.